This is the X Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you from the mothership of paranormal programming, the X Zone Broadcast Network. And it is a thrill to be back with all of you tonight as we continue our quest to uncover evidence and find the truth to the paranormal. And to help us tonight, I got a very, very special guest. He's a former police officer, an advocate for unity and honesty in the field of paranormal research and investigation, world-renowned radio personality, and the keynote speaker to the 4th Annual Treasure Coast Para-Unity Conference in Fellsmere, Florida this weekend, and my friend, our own Rob McConnell. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hey, Larry. Great being on both sides of the microphone tonight.
Yeah, you're on both sides, and I know this is you've been on both sides of the microphone many times over the years, and I'm just really thrilled to have you on my show tonight. I got to ask you, my friend,
Sure.
after all the conversations we've had, you're one of the best-known paranormal radio personalities in the world today. What got you started in this?
Well, there were three things I wanted to do when I was a kid. I wanted to play in a rock and roll band, I wanted to be a cop, and I wanted to be in broadcasting. Everybody who was born in the 50s when they saw the Beatles, they were hooked on music, you know? I mean, not hooked on phonics, but hooked on music. and I was fortunate enough to, my uncle was very musical. He taught me how to play the guitar and other instruments, and I was actually in one of the first Beatle clone bands in the Montreal area called the Cell Beat. And during my tenure playing music, I played with Gordon Lightfoot. I've played with Pagliaro and a bunch of other people that used to hang around in old Montreal in those days. Then I had to get a real job because, playing in a rock and roll band isn't the best way to make money if you're not
Just
John Lennon or Paul McCartney.
Yeah,
exactly. So there are a number of my family members were in the police force. My uncle was the officer in charge of the Vice Squad in Montreal. Another uncle was in St. Lambert as a sergeant. My dad had been a fingerprint technician. So the door was there, and I decided to take it. My mother used to tell me that I cut my teeth on a policeman's nightstick instead of a teething ring. And I was in the police force for a number of years, and then I had an injury, and it was either I take retirement or I sit at a desk. And I'm not the kind of guy that can be a desk jockey. So I decided to take the retirement. And my mom had always, she worked as a receptionist at CKGM 980 in Montreal, an AM station. It was one of the rock stations. And she was also a bit part actor for some of the productions that were done at CFCF TV in Montreal. And she would go down on Saturday to do these bit parts. And I'd go with her because, just lived down the street from CFCF. And I was totally amazed at the technical aspect. Not what my mother was doing. God, I saw her enough at home. I didn't want to see her on TV. And
funny, she said the same thing about you.
I know. When I was born, the doctor slapped my mother. So, I'm going to be here all Tuesday. Enjoy the veal. So anyway, we after getting out of leaving the police force, I decided, okay, so let's see. I did the rock and roll shtick. I did the police bit. Hey, broadcasting. So I taught myself how to do video editing and all aspects of TV. And in 1981, I formed a company with two other broadcasters in Montreal. It was MGB Video. And what we did then was I decided, well, you know what, there's good money in this. And I was I did video, and I was doing video, and then I decided to do a newspaper, and I had always been interested in the paranormal. Mm-hmm. And I decided to do the X Chronicles Newspaper, which started in 1991, and it's been published every month ever since. I got a call from Brian Wild at radio station CHML here in Hamilton, and he says, I'm going to make you a once-in-a-lifetime offer. Bill Kelly, who was a very, very well-known host here in Hamilton, would like you to come on his show for the next 2 weeks, be his guest, and talk about the paranormal.
Oh, okay.
Well, I did that, brought the newspapers, and that was it. I was hooked. I started the X Zone radio show in St. Catharines at radio station CHS. No. First station was CKDX in Newmarket, Ontario, which meant I had to drive 4.5 hours to the station and 4.5 hours back home. Then the show was brought to 1220 CHSC in St. Catharines. From St. Catharines, we went to London, Ontario at CJBK. From CJBK to, NewsTalk 610 CKTB, where I was also the executive producer and programming. Mm-hmm. And from there, the show went to CFBU, and at CFBU, we got picked up and syndicated, bought my own studio, and the rest is history.
And here we are today talking with each other on my show on your network.
Yep.
So that's fascinating. Now, you said you've had an interest in the paranormal.
Yeah.
Ever had the opportunity to be part of an investigation? Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. That's going to be a kind of a long question. I want to talk to you more about how you got into the paranormal or how your interest came to the paranormal. But we're going to take a break, because if we don't break now, this producer of mine is going to get on my case. So hang tight, and folks, we're going to be back in just a second with Rob McConnell.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, our own Rob McConnell. Rob, just before the break, we got started talking about, you say you developed an interest in the paranormal. What was your first experience? I mean, what was it that triggered the interest?
Wow. It was going back to a time where we lived in Chamonix, Laval. And my mother and father always made sure that wherever we moved, they found a place right in front of the school. How they did this, I don't know. But no matter where we lived, it was smack dab in front of the school that we.
They wanted to make sure you went there. Is the problem? They wanted to make sure you went to school.
Yeah, I understand that, and well, that's another show. Okay. This place we lived in Chamonix was on 68th Avenue. Now, when you looked out our bedroom window, we lived on the second story of a duplex. Was the schoolyard that joined Prince Charles on the right-hand side, if you're looking out, and on the left-hand side was Thomas H. Bowes. And in the middle was a common schoolyard for both, because Prince Charles was elementary and Thomas H. Bowes was high school. So it was in the middle of the summer. All the kids, were off school, and my mother is of European descent. And no matter what time of the year it was, you had to be in bed at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, now at this time I was about 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. So you had to be in bed. Now, once you're in bed, you could read, you could color, you could write, but you had to be in bed.
Okay.
Now, when you're 8 or 9 years old and you're living across from a schoolyard, everybody's playing, baseball, and, we had roller skates back then, and you'd hear the kids going up and down the street and having a good time, and there you were stuck in bed with your brother beside you. And this one summer night, it got quiet outside. The kids weren't playing. You just couldn't hear anything.
Uh-huh.
And I got up to look outside to see what was going on. And something caught my eye over Prince Charles School, and it was cylindrical, long, and it had like little portholes in the side, and you could see the light coming out. Now, this is about 8 o'clock in the evening. Well, my brother came up, and we both saw this, and it was going from south to north. Now, Chamonix is on the approach of the Dorval International Airport, which is called Pierre-Elliott Trudeau Airport now.
Mm-hmm.
And aircraft would land from the east to west. Now, this is a time in aviation history when turboprops were being phased out and DC-8s were coming into the scene.
Okay.
So this thing that was going between the two schools at this point was making no sound. It was moving very slow. It should not have been up there. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a helicopter. It didn't have any rotors. So so we decided to call my father and try and get him to come in and look at it, And he thought it was just a ploy for us to stay up. Anyway, we tried. Finally, he comes, and this thing had gone from the north towards the south, out of view. Now, my brother and I are still a little excited. So, remember the old rotary phones?
Sure do.
There's Dad in the kitchen with my mother and my grandmother are there, and you've got two neurotic kids at this point, and he pretends to be dialing the phone. Well, I looked at my brother, he looked at me, and because we're both seeing that the finger isn't going in the dial, and he says, "Oh, hi, is this the airport?" Yeah. Okay, listen, my two kids said they saw something strange in the sky. Oh, it was an experimental aircraft. Oh, so nothing to worry about. No, okay, well, thank you very much. Hangs up the phone, and we heard what he said, and I can remember thinking to myself, well, Dad, you gave it an honest shot, you're doing your parental thing. So my brother and I go back into the bedroom, and we knew that we had seen something spectacular. And I knew that what I had just seen was going to change my life forever. Now, the next morning, the neighbors are talking about everything. You had Mr. Tomasco, who was a local fruit merchant. He was talking to the ladies selling fruit out of the back of his truck. And you had other people cutting lawns. You had other people doing this, that, and the other thing. Here's the interesting part. Not one adult talked about what we saw. Not one adult. But you know what? Later on, when we met up with our friends, every kid in the neighborhood saw what we saw in the sky, and nobody could explain what it was. And that's where my interest came. And then I was hooked on buying different books about flying saucers. I remember being subscribed to Fate magazine in the early days. It was just something that I couldn't get enough material to read.
And it seems like that kind of experience. Mm-hmm. I had one. I wasn't a child when it happened, but I had an experience when I was a young police officer myself.
Yeah.
that changed how I look at these things and sparked my interest in the paranormal. And, at least you had some other kids, if it were, that were at least talking about it and saw it. But a lot of times, we see something that we know we've experienced, but we've got no way to prove it. No pictures, nobody else saw it. You at least had some folks seeing it.
Well, but, you're right. We had other folks seeing it, but what it was still evades each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm. What you saw, has it fit the description? Because I know many of your guests are experts in ufology.
Yes.
Has any of them ever seen anything similar to what you described that day?
Yes, but once again, it can't be explained exactly what it was. I was a kid back then. Over the years, I can still remember what it looked like outside. It was a beautiful sunny evening. I remember looking at the object. But to give you a verbatim, description of what that thing is today, I couldn't.
Well, that's why they call it a UFO. You can't identify it. Yeah,
exactly.
I totally get that. But it changed your entire perspective. It changed how you looked at things.
As a kid, yes.
Yeah.
As a kid, yes.
But didn't it also kind of form where you're at today as far as how you view these things?
It formed it. What it did was it created my quest that I've been on all these years to find the truth, to try and find out what that was I saw in the skies over Chamonix Laval that summer evening. Mm-hmm. When it comes to ufology, I've been doing this show now 26 years, 5 nights a week, 4 guests a night. I think Craig, my senior producer here, last tabulated over 4,900 individual guests. That doesn't include the guests that we've had on the show more than once. Right. And I must tell you something, Larry. Nothing has changed in the 26 years doing this show. Nothing, whether it's UFOs, alien abductions, cattle mutilation, men in black, close encounters of the first, second, third kind. Mm-hmm. Nothing has changed. And that, to me, is the biggest mystery of all. Why not?
Got a theory on it?
My theory is based on the following premise.
Okay.
We are in a very modern age, technologically. And yet, even though people have a high-definition camera in their cell phones, even though there are webcams around the world that are, that are on dashboards of the cars, on street corners, even though we have the most sophisticated satellite surveillance systems that humanity has ever seen, there has not been one smoking gun photo of a UFO. Now, here's my theory.
Okay.
I believe that the UFO community, not the government, not the Vatican, are perpetrating the conspiracy theory. Because as long as this conspiracy is in place, no one has to provide proof of the existence of these craft. Because it's a cover-up. It's a conspiracy.
What are they covering up?
They're covering up the fact that UFOs do not exist. You have to look at something, Larry. The UFO industry is a multi-million-dollar business.
No doubt.
Okay, now if it was ever proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are no UFOs, what would happen to all the authors, all the TV producers, all the people who make a living on the hypothesis that UFOs are real? A lot of money would be lost.
A lot, and isn't that what drives just about everything?
Exactly.
So are you suggesting that UFOs don't exist?
I'm suggesting that UFOs from Alpha Centauri or the Pleiades do not exist. At this time, they cannot be proven to exist. I want to believe, but until there is proof, I can't.
See, I can almost see the cover up, because let's face it, even if they prove UFOs exist, then the quest is also over.
Exactly.
And that's also a hit to the pocketbooks. So I can see the conspiracy theory on both sides, but you can't. I know you can't describe what you saw a few decades ago, and I get that. But there's no question in your mind you saw it. There's no question in your mind that what you saw was not an aircraft that was that was normal for that period of time. You'd agree with that?
I agree with that. But here's the question: the perplexing question is: was what was in the sky known and identifiable to the adults, and that is why they weren't talking about it, because what they saw was a non-event. And yet what we children saw, we could not identify, so that made it the event.
Fair enough. I mean, you're describing it. I'm wondering if it could have been a dirigible. That was the one thought that came to mind here. So do you think that everyone, and this is a broad question, I grant you, that have claimed to have seen a UFO are fabricating it or imagining it?
They believe they have seen a UFO, unidentified flying object. I agree that they believe, and if they believe they have seen something that they could not identify in the sky, it meets the identification of unidentified flying object.
Agreed with that. Now, my only other argument, it's not even an argument, but my other view of looking at this is, just getting the music in my ear. It's time for a quick break. I was just going to ask you an important question, but when we get back, I'll get into that. Folks, stay with us. Rob McConnell, X Zone Broadcast Nation. He's with us. Come on back. We've got more to talk about. See you in a minute.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
And we are back with my guest tonight, Rob McConnell. Rob, interesting conversation. I've never heard this story. You never told me the story about what you saw as a kid, and what you're saying makes sense. And I do agree with you in that not only UFOs, but Bigfoot, certainly ghosts, which is where my primary interest rises. Certainly, there's tons of money in it. People are making a lot of money, and to either prove it or disprove it would certainly hit folks in the pocketbook. But we were talking about UFOs. I'm going to talk a little bit about ghosts for a second. Okay. I can look you in the eye, and you know me well enough.
Yep.
I have seen a full body apparition. I've seen it with my eyes. Could not explain it. It was there, but I can't prove it to you. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a picture, so I get the skepticism. But would you agree that there are things in our world that we cannot explain, that are otherworldly, or that is beyond our explanation? Would you agree with that, or do you think everything is explainable?
I have never seen an apparition. I have never seen a ghost. I, like yourself, am an ex-cop. We deal with evidence. We deal with the facts. And that's how I've always done my radio show, or the TV show, or the series that I work on, is based on fact and evidence, not hearsay, but fact.
Agreed.
I have been on ghost walks where people will swear they hear music and I can't hear a thing. I've gone to the ghost walks in Fort George, that is in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and people swear up and down they see a little girl, or they hear the violin playing, or they hear soldiers marching on a parade ground. And then I have to be the party pooper at the end and tell everybody, well, you know what? This is not where the fort was in the real days of the fort. The fort has been rebuilt, and it was built in a totally different place than where it was. The buildings are not from the old fort. So what are they hearing? What are they seeing? Are they seeing and hearing something that they want to believe in so much that they are manifesting this information themselves?
And I think that is a very, very real possibility. And I'm gonna head down that road for just a second, because I saw an experiment. We had our Para-Unity conference last year.
Oh, yeah, the experiment, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know the total power of our own mind. I mean, we have not fully explored that yet. So I think it's entirely possible that there are situations where, we've either emotionally bought into it so deeply, or want to see it so bad, or just put our minds to it so strongly, we do create our own evidence. I think that's an entire possibility. I don't think it's the complete answer, but I do agree with you. People do act upon emotion and react to that emotion and hear what they want to hear on occasion.
Something that I have found out doing my show, when I talk to New Age practitioners who get into the life after death communications, or the life after death contacts, whether it be with instrumental transcommunication, or ITC, and other aspects, is that prior to the advent of the internet and prior to the advent of Ouija boards, this was rather not very well known and not acceptable. But it seems that with the advent of the internet, everything goes.
Oh,
it's
no question about that.
Like I've told you this times before, Larry, that the internet is the largest septic tank that man has ever made, because there's more crap in it than anything else.
I do not disagree with you.
Yeah.
But on the same token, I'm going to go back to your comment on the police officer and evidence. And you know how I feel about evidence, and we've talked about it. My quest to create a repository for evidence so that we can collect stuff and collect it using the scientific method, and collect it in such a way that it is preserved and kept and presented properly.
Yes.
But on the same token, being a police officer, and I've been asked this, you're a cop. How can you believe in this sort of thing? My answer to that is, do you want a police officer to come to your house to investigate the crime that occurred to you and just say, well, I just think this happened because that's the only thing that makes sense to me? Or would you rather have a police officer come to your house and saying, I'm going to look at all the evidence and keep an open mind in order to solve this crime? And that's what I try to do.
But in the finality of the investigation, it is the evidence that brings the charges.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what my thrust is. And then you've heard me say this before. I want to get the evidence, collect it, preserve it, and be able to present it to a jury of my peers to prove the existence. See, I know what I've seen and experienced. And I also agree with you, the evidence has got to be there. So my quest, and the quest that I think that the field needs to head into, is find the evidence. Don't hang your hat on feelings or emotions, but find that evidence and present it. And that's where I'm heading, because based upon my experience, I believe It's out there. We just got to figure out a way to prove it. And you said something else of interest, too, that nothing's really changed.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed in the ghost field either. We've got a few new pieces of equipment, but we haven't gone forward. We haven't moved forward in being able to collect the evidence that's out there. And that's where I think we need to go.
I agree with you. One of the major problems I see is there's a lot of ego, whether it's in the UFO field, the Bigfoot field, the Loch Ness Monster, and of course in the paranormal investigative field. There's a lot of ego. Everybody wants to be the person to break the case and get their 5 minutes of fame on TV. And I think that until we break the mold, it's going to be very hard to come up with the sharing of the information. Hell, you and I know this better than a lot of people, that we share information in law enforcement.
Yeah, but it wasn't always that way. At least I can't speak for you being in Canada, but in this country, we had a real problem with agencies sharing information, and that really came out after 9/11.
Well, you see, from the very start of my career in law enforcement, going into the 70s, information was the number one thing we were taught. Share the information, because unless you share the information, the crime will never be solved.
And we said the same thing, but it was not practiced enough. And like I said, I can only speak from our side of it. Nowadays, it's different. Now the information sharing in law enforcement is better than I've ever seen it. And that is making a huge difference. We're seeing a difference in the war against terrorism, as well as the common crimes. So it's changed, and you're 100% correct. That's what's going to happen in the paranormal field. We've got to get rid of those egos and, that's my evidence, and I don't dare share it because you're right. I want a piece of the pie. I want to be the hero. I want to be the next TV star. That's got to change. And until that does, we won't move forward. And
I think that the media aspect of the paranormal has ruined a lot of people who have been taking the work that credible investigators are doing more seriously. You know, like there's a person who is very well known for her ghost story, who shares a story of seeing UFOs the size of football fields over her house. And then you've got the other cases that are so ridiculous. Tom Biscardi, when it comes to the case of Bigfoot, he pulled off so many hoaxes, nobody believes in Bigfoot anymore.
And that's the problem.
Exactly.
And it all boils down to, I want my 15 minutes of fame. Instead of taking the issue seriously and coming together and looking for it, they just want their 15 minutes of fame. And you're 100% right. I agree with you. That's done more to harm the field than anything. The only thing I could possibly say about the TV industry is, and I've spoken to some folks that have been involved, and I think most of them go into it with a pure heart, shall we say, to begin with, and maybe get tainted later. But most of them started off wanting to find the answers and ended up getting caught up in this field of fame.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And we've just got to get away from that. I can't take away the experiences I've had that I can't explain.
But there is something that you're forgetting in the entire formula about yourself, Larry. You are a trained observer. You are a professional witness.
Exactly. And that's the other part of the equation that we've got to address also, and that's training. If people are going to do this and they're going to take it seriously, I know you got to agree, they've got to be trained to become better witnesses, better investigators.
Definitely.
Not just these weekend warriors that half the time I spoke to a guy that builds equipment. He tells me he sells it. Half the people don't even know why it works or the theory or the science behind it. Well, how can you investigate if you don't know how to do it properly? And that's where training's got to come into play.
Right now, the paranormal is where the CBs used to be in the very early late 60s, early 70s. Everybody would get a CB in their car, and they'd all go to a parking lot and talk to each other side by side.
Well, in a sense, I think most people, there are people out there that do it just for the thrill. There's no doubt about it. I think there are people out there that also sincerely want to do it. They just don't know how. And they don't know where to go to get the training. They don't know where to go to complete their understanding of exactly what it is they're doing. So that's my take on it anyway. I think most people, not all, but most people are sincere. They just don't know how to do it.
But if you don't know how to do something, why would you even attempt it? It's just like these people who put all these initials after their names, doctor of this, doctor of that. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They pay $3,000-$4,000 to a non-certified collegiate school. Yep. They get this piece of paper that in the real world is useless, and people flock to them because they have these bogus degrees. That also adds to the discrediting of the paranormal. And once again, I'll agree with you there also. There are charlatans out there. There are folks that get degrees or claim they can do things that they can't. And personally, that's the one area that troubles me the most are people that say, we're here to help you. Mm-hmm. We're going to solve your problem. But they're really not qualified to do it. And then they risk leaving that poor client in a worse spot. Exactly.
And that is one of my biggest issues, and I see way too much of that. And sometimes people even don't mean to be a charlatan, if you will. They mean well, but they don't realize what they don't know. They're not trained and they're not prepared, and they can do more harm than good. So I'll agree with you there.
All right, buddy.
We're going to take our last break, folks. This has been a quick hour so far, folks, but stay with us. Got more to come on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Mr. Rob McConnell. Be right back.
This is the X Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And we are back for the last segment tonight's show with Rob McConnell. Rob, can't tell you how much I appreciate you being with us tonight. Everybody, I want you to take some time, go to www.xzbn.net, take a look at all the terrific programming that the X Zone Broadcast Network has to offer, including this show, Paranormal Stakeout. And I'd invite you to check out my website at www.paranormalstakeout.com, as well as the website of my own paranormal team, www.paranormalfbi.com. Rob,
yeah.
Wow, great show tonight. I'm really enjoying seeing your you're hearing your end of it, because we very rarely get to talk like this. So, got to ask you, all the years you've been doing this, all the people you've talked to, most exciting or controversial guest? who earns that honor and why? I got to know.
Oh Lord, there are so many.
Yeah.
All right. The one that no one will ever forget was the time we invited a psychic goat to come on the show.
Say what?
A psychic goat, a goat.
Okay.
Now, the lady came down with her psychic goat, and she, the producer said, "You're not going to believe what just came into the studio." I said, "I believe anything." Anyway, the goat comes in, and the lady puts down a red dish of water and a green dish of water.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Okay, what's that for?" Well, she says the green dish is yes, and the red dish is no. Okay. Now, I don't know if all your listeners are well aware of the anatomy of a goat, but they poop a lot. Okay. So just imagine the size of a goat compared to that of a rabbit. And, there was more poop in the studio than there was answers that were given by the psychic goat.
Was this radio or TV?
This was radio. This was radio.
Oh, thank God for that. Okay.
Yeah. Another one was when I had this medium on the show. And during the show, she was telling me that she was getting messages from my sister who had crossed over. And I said, "Really? Well, what is she saying?" She's saying that she's with you all the time and that you're never alone. And she doesn't, she cherishes the time that you had with her while she was here on this plane before she went away, and that she's looking forward to being with you on the other side. And I said, "Wow," and I was really moved by it. And then I dropped the bomb and I said, "Well, geez, isn't that too bad? Because I don't have a sister. I never had a sister, and you're gone." And we have a sound effect of a shotgun cocking and the shotgun firing and the toilet bowl flushing, and then another one bites the dust plays. Then there was the guy who was selling specialized aluminum foil to make yourself a hat with so that the aliens couldn't probe your mind. And then, of course, me being me, I said, "Well, what about the butt? Does it protect that as well?" And he could not understand what I was talking about, so he was short-lived. And then we had the guy from Alberta who invented a UFO detection system and repulsion system. I said, "Well, how do you do that?" He said, "Well, I tell you, I went to Canadian Tire, and I got myself a car battery and a bunch of red lights, and whenever there's a UFO, the lights go on and scares the UFO off." I said, "Well, how many UFOs have you seen?" He says, I've seen none, so I know that it works." And then even tonight, when I was doing my own show, I had this lady come on who was a healer. And she was telling me that she gets the information from the Space Brotherhood. And she also cleanses houses. She also helps ghosts to cross over. She does so many things. And while she was talking, I ran a background check on her.
Uh-huh.
And, a business came up in New Mexico that she had owned. And I said, "Listen, prior to that, I said, well, how did you get into doing what you're doing when you've actually got a degree in interior design?" And there was a pause, like she figured, how did he know this? So we're going on. I said, "Okay, so how did you go from naturopath to healer?" And she said, I was never a naturopath. I said, "You didn't own the name of the business?" And I gave her the street address. And she said, "No." I said, "You didn't declare bankruptcy in 2011? Dead silence. The jig is up. So I decide to be nice, and I take her back to a place where she would feel familiar. And she started stuttering like you would not believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why people try to pull the wool over our eyes. I've been doing this show for 26 years. I'm an ex-cop. I know when I'm getting a snow job.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the fact that I live in Hamilton and there's always a lot of snow here.
Boom.
Boom. And the stories go on and on and on. Like one of the famous ones that my wife loves to tell is that we had this Trailblazer that was marked out with the X Zone radio and TV show on, that I would drive around to different events. And we drove to the Friendship Festival in Fort Erie because I was doing a remote there for one of our clients. And I got out of the car, and 3 young girls, about 18, 19, 20, said, "Oh, it's Rob McConnell," and they flashed me. And I just looked and I said, "That's nice," and I kept on walking. What are you supposed to do, right?
That happens to you all the time, doesn't it, Rob?
Not as often as it used to. I don't do a lot of remotes anymore. Maybe that's why. But we've done the show in the haunted jail in the old city jail in Toronto in Ottawa. We've done the show from the haunted parade ground of the Kingston Fort. We've done the show from haunted bars, haunted restaurants. We've done the show from Mexico. We've done the show from the Bahamas. It's been a passion of mine. And people say, "Well, Rob, I've listened to your show and you don't believe. Why do you do it?" I said, "Because if the truth is out there, I will find it. It will be found on this show."
I agree. It will be found on your show or shows similar to this.
No, it'll be this one.
It'll be yours. Okay.
Yeah. Or yours.
It could be mine. Yeah. But I think that's the quest. And I believe that there is something out there. What it is, and I tell folks, I don't profess to convince anybody there's ghosts. I do say there is something out there.
Yeah.
I do say there is something out there we can't explain. What that is, I don't know yet. But by God, I'm going to find out someday. At least that's my goal. And I know it's the same thing on yours. Now, you're going to be joining us this coming weekend.
Yes, I am.
Down here in our neck of the woods.
Yeah, I'm selling the peanuts in the lobby.
Are you? Okay, well, good. They were looking for somebody to do that.
Yeah, I know.
Can you give us a hint where what you're going to share with us at all?
Nope.
Nope. Going to keep it quiet. Okay.
Nope. Actually, I'm going to talk about one of the things I'm going to talk about, of course, is the media and the paranormal. But the main thrust of the conversation and the speech is going to be on the unity that we have to bring into this this phenomenon. Not only because I really believe that in order to find the big picture, well, let me give you this analogy. In my opinion, everyone has a piece of life's mysteries as a jigsaw puzzle in their pocket. We need to get everybody to a giant-sized table, flip over the pieces, and together work on that puzzle.
Amen.
And that's not what we're doing right now. Everybody, like I said before, wants to be the organization, the group that finds the smoking gun. And I'm going to tell you something, and you know this as being a member of law enforcement. If that is the mentality, it will never be found.
I could not agree with you more. We have got to come together, and that's the purpose of this gathering, is to bring groups together to discuss this and start developing this plan. And you know me, I'm not only into the evidence collection, but the training end of it.
But you see, Larry, I'm gonna blow your whistle here for a few minutes, because you're a very humble person, and to all those of you who are listening, in my opinion, and I've been doing this show for 26 years. I've produced and directed, I don't know how many TV series on the paranormal. Larry Lawson, my friend, has got the formula that will bring this community together. Training, working together, sharing of information, professionalism, bring the scientific community in. Larry Lawson, I love what you're doing, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, Rob. I really do. But it's got to be a team effort, and that's. But
every team needs a leader, and that's where you come in.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence, but we just need all of us to get together. And to blow your horn a little bit, I really appreciate what you do to help us get this word out. Yes, I know you're skeptical. We all need to be skeptical, but you do bring reality and you bring common sense to the table with this. So I truly appreciate what you're doing also. And this program, if anybody's out there is listening, wants to join us, starting Friday night, 5 o'clock, City of Fellsmere. It's in Indian River County, Florida. It's going to be quite a show. And our own Rob McConnell is going to be the keynote speaker. Can't wait to see you down here, Rob. We're going to get you out of the cold weather for a few days.
All right, Larry. Listen, I want to thank you ever so much for your friendship. But I also want to thank you for the great show that you provide the X Zone Broadcast Network. And this is something I want to share with you on your show tonight. Your show, Paranormal Stakeout, is going to be one of the nighttime featured shows on our new XZBN channel 365.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you very much. That's a great surprise. Thank you, Rob.
Larry, take care of yourself, my good friend.
You too. And folks, stay with us. Paranormal Stakeout. We will see you on the other side.